We are less than 6 weeks away from Eagles training camp. Are they still the clear-cut favorites? And the NFC and Dallas Goedert back for his 8th season. We have some expert analysis on whether that was the right play for the Birds. And the Eagles rookie DB tandem made an instant impact last season. Can we expect more of the same from this year's draft class? And with that, welcome into Birds Huddle, presented by Toyota, official automotive partner of the NFL. I'm Ashlyn Sullivan, and we have a very special guest joining us today. I am happy to welcome to the show from Chicago, former Eagles tight end Clay Harbor here with us now. Thank you so much for joining the show, Clay.
Appreciate you guys having me, Ashlyn. Looking forward to talking some Birds, obviously the team that drafted me, so always love talking Philly sports.
Love it. The good old days. And Clay, we're going to start things right off here with our 3-point stance. A lot to get to, even though it is still the offseason, with training camp less than 6 weeks away. First stance here. The Eagles, I think, are still the team to beat in the NFC. They're running it back with basically the same roster on offense. Vic Fangio, yes, there's a lot of holes on defense. There are a lot of young guys, but I trust in Vic Fangio with what he's able to do. I get that there's the Commanders, there's the Rams, there's the Lions. What do you think? Is that an insane stance to say?
No, absolutely not. They're returning 20 of their 25 players that took the most snaps for them last year. And as a guy that's obviously played a lot of football, that's important. You have a lot of continuity there, and that's something that matters a lot. And defensively, yeah, you took a big hit losing some of your big-time guys, but you still got Jalen Carter, Zach Bond, Quinion Mitchell, Cooper DeJean coming back, and obviously, like you said, Vic Fangio, who pitched that masterclass in the Super Bowl. So I think they're in excellent position to remain the top of the NFC.
And it's interesting, Clay, when we talk about that consistency, you're going to know this better than most. The one thing that really is inconsistent with this Eagles team is the offensive coordinator position. Jalen Hurts has not had the same play caller since he's been here with the Eagles. As a guy who knows offense, how difficult is that to rinse, wash, and repeat this every single year?
Kevin Patullo is a guy that spent a lot of time with Jalen Hurts and a lot of time in that system. So I'm not worried. I think Kellen Moore was a solid play caller, but it did take him some time to get going. Most quarterbacks, I would say that's an issue. You want to get into the idiosyncrasies of an offense, which usually takes 2, 3, 4 years. When I played in New England, Tom Brady had been in the same system basically for 16 years. But Jalen Hurts is so intelligent and such a guy that loves football. He's going to spend whatever amount of time it takes for him to be a master of this offense. So for this given team and quarterback, I don't think it's that big of a deal just because of who Jalen Hurts and his Philadelphia Eagles team is. You got veterans on the offensive line. You got veterans at receiver. You got a veteran tight end. So overall, I think it's not going to hurt him.
That is definitely the hope. And speaking of, let's move on to our second stance here. Regardless of what some of the national media has to say, and that has been a big topic this week, Jalen Hurts has established himself as an elite quarterback in the NFL. I think so. I mean, the guy has won a Super Bowl, for goodness sakes, and I don't know if he's ever going to get the credit that he deserves nationally. There always just seems to be some people that don't believe he's running this offense as efficiently. Frankly, I think especially last season, he didn't need to, right? With Saquon Barkley, and I wonder now with Kevin Patullo taking the reins of this offense, as offensive coordinator, is he going to give Jalen the chance to lead a more pass-friendly offense to maybe prove all the doubters wrong? We'll see.
Well, let's start with the run game, Ashlyn. I think that people don't realize that Jalen Hurts is a big part of the run game. Okay, some people ask, hey, how's the quarterback a part of the run game? There's only a handful of quarterbacks that can run the football like Jalen Hurts. When you have that weapon, when you have that threat of a quarterback that can take off on the zone read, which the Eagles use a lot of, you are pulling an extra defender outside of the box, right? So you're actually gaining an extra player with Jalen Hurts just being your quarterback. Saquon Barkley does not have the season he has without Jalen Hurts. And for me, let's look at the biggest games. In the playoffs, Jalen Hurts completed 72% of his passes, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, a 109 rating, and he had 200 yards on the ground, 5 touchdowns, and averaged 5.7 yards per carry. For me, big-time players play big in big games, and Jalen showed up in the playoffs and the Super Bowl when it mattered most. So to me, he's a top 5 quarterback for that reason.
That's a great reason alone. And I get asked this a lot, and I'm curious your opinion on this. People ask me, okay, what does Jalen Hurts have to do to earn that respect nationwide? I think he already deserves it, but when I answer this question, I say I think he needs one more Super Bowl to really prove everyone wrong? What do you think it's going to take?
I think he should have it, but obviously he doesn't. But if he wins a second Super Bowl, Ashton, you're absolutely right. There's nothing you can say. I don't care if he throws 10 touchdowns. If you are a guy that has multiple Super Bowl, that list is very, very small. You're getting into top of the line, top quarterbacks. And if you win multiple Super Bowls, a guy like Jalen Hurts, there is nothing you can say. I don't care what his stats say. The guy's a winner and he gets it done.
Yes, he does. And Clay, I'm going to lean into your expertise here as a former tight end for this third stance. The Eagles, I think, were wise to bring back Dallas Goedert for this season, at least for this year, right? Do I think he's going to get a long-term deal here in Philadelphia with the age he is? Most likely not. I do think another team's going to pick him up. But this Eagles team right now is so in win-now mode to keep this offense so consistent with Dallas Goedert. And you know this, his blocking abilities and him showing up in big games in the passing game, I don't think that can be overlooked.
Absolutely not. And once again, he's another one of those guys. You hear about this big Eagles offensive line with Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, obviously Tyler Steen in the battle for another offensive line spot, Cam Jurgens. You got a lot of players there, but don't forget about Dallas Goedert. He's a guy that can block on that edge, and you love to run Saquon in that wide zone, and that's one of the reasons there's a lot of holes there is Dallas Goedert. I know he was 19th in tight end receiving yards last year. I know he missed 7 games. I know he's been getting injured a lot. But let's look again, Ashton, at when it mattered most. In the playoffs, who led the Eagles in receiving yards and receptions? Was it Devontae Smith? No. Was it A.J. Brown? No. It was Dallas Goedert. He caught 85% of the passes thrown his way, had a 128 passer rating when targeted. He's one of the few tight ends that play better in big-time games and one of the few tight ends that can block and catch passes. So bringing him back, absolutely right. Your win now. He's still playing at a high level. He may miss a few games, but if he's there in crunch time, like he did last year, he led the Eagles in receiving, he can do it again.
Right, and I'm so curious, Clay, with the way this Eagles offense is run, I think at times it's hard to look at the targets when compared to other positions with other teams because, frankly, there's just not enough footballs to go around to get these guys the targets that they want on this Eagles offense. I applaud them for understanding the grand scheme of things, but that's why I always feel like those stats are a little bit skewed.
Yeah, there's one football, and you got Saquon Barkley in your backfield. So obviously, Devontae is going to get his touches, AJ is going to get his touches, and whenever you need him down the middle of the field, Dallas Goedert is there. And that's another reason why you want to keep this guy, because some tight ends that are this good, that are this highly touted, will maybe raise a little bit of a stink, a fuss. Dallas Goedert, no, he's going to block hard regardless. If Saquon has 150 and he only gets two catches, he's fine with that as long as the Eagles win the game. So that's another reason why you want him as your tight end. It reminds me a little bit of Brent Selleck when I was playing. Brent would go games where Deshaun would have a ton of catches, where Jeremy Maclin would have a bunch of catches, and Brent wouldn't get targeted that much. He didn't care. He blocked his tail off, and when LaShawn McCoy had big games, he took pride in that.
Totally agree. Great comparison there. And now time for the playbook presented by Supercuts. Clay sticking around to talk about some of the hot topics around the league, including welcome back to Birds Huddle. And once again, joined by former Eagles tight end Clay Harbor. And Clay, I want to get your opinion on some things around the NFL, pressing issues here. Let's get right to Pittsburgh. That is the big news of the week. Aaron Rodgers, the new starting quarterback. Took a while to get Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh, that is for sure, but it definitely seems like he's an upgrade of anyone else. How do you think this is going to shake out?
I think it's a good move. They have a veteran roster, and they spend a ton of money on their defense. The last 4 seasons, they've spent the most money in the entire NFL on their defense. So they're not going to ask Aaron Rodgers to do a ton. They're going to ask him to lead a solid offense. I think he's still got that in him. Let's go back to last season. Obviously, he didn't win a ton of games, but his last 7 games, Aaron Rodgers had 13 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. He finished with 28 passing touchdowns. That was more than Patrick Mahomes and tied with Josh Allen. This guy can still sling it. He may be 42, but his right arm is still about 31. So I think it's a good move for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I really think so as well. And it was funny when everyone was up in arms about why is he not reporting to OTAs? Where is this guy? When it just took a while to get this all figured out. But I think when you looked at the quarterback room for the Steelers and running it back with Mason Rudolph, it's almost like their hands were tied. Like they had to make this move to stay relevant in the NFL to me.
Aaron Rodgers was busy getting married. You know, he
Yeah.
shows up. He's got a ring on his finger. Let the guy, he said he had some personal things. The guy actually got married. But I really think he finished last season strong. I know the record doesn't say that, but the way he was throwing the ball, his shoulder, his right arm is still young enough to make some things happen. He's really going to get some things done. Obviously, he can't move like he used to, but what he can do is pre-snap, make sure they're in the right play. There's no defense he hasn't seen.
So true, and a guy that has played in a ton of big games. Let's stay here in the AFC North. A lot of going on with the Cincinnati Bengals. It's confusing, really, when you look at edge rusher Trey Hendrickson. Skipped minicamp as he continues to look for that new contract, rightfully so. And their first-round draft pick, Shamar Stewart, who could very well be Hendrickson's replacement if this doesn't work out, left camp after failing to come to an agreement on his rookie contract. So much drama going on with the Bengals. How do you see this shaking out? I mean, these are two key players that, frankly, just aren't there.
You would think the Bengals had the 85 Bears defense the way they're handling this. Last year, they set an NFL record by losing 4 games that they scored over 33 points. The most that's ever happened in NFL history. And now 2 of your supposedly big difference makers aren't even at OTAs or minicamp. I think Trey Hendrickson, 17 and a half sacks each of the last 2 years, 35 sacks, has led the NFL the past 2 seasons, hasn't missed a single game those past 2 years. Pay the man. Let him get one last contract in. The guy is making $16 million. He's getting doubled up by guys like Myles Garrett, and he's sacking the quarterback more than them. So obviously he wants his money. Then Shamar Stewart, this is a battle about language, the guarantees. It differs from what they gave last year's guy. So it's one of those things, who's going to blink first? I think Shamar Stewart has a case here, but if you're Shamar Stewart, you're this guy that just broke out at the combine, and your whole case against you was you didn't have production. He has 4 career sacks. He had 1.5 sacks last year in college. You need to be in OTAs. You do your job, let your agent do his job, and move forward.
Yeah, it's really simply that, Puck. And I'll tell you what, it makes the Eagles off season look very boring when you look at all of this going on in Cincinnati. But I think the biggest question with this Bengals team, this was supposed to be the team that was going to dethrone the Chiefs. They were definitely one of the biggest competitors in the AFC. I don't think you can say that anymore with all of this going on. And this Chiefs team right now, can we expect 4 straight Super Bowls? At some point, someone's got to dethrone them, right? The question is just who?
I don't bet against Andy Reid or Patrick Mahomes unless it was the Super Bowl last year, which I did bet on the Eagles. Luckily, they served me right. But I think the Ravens are a team that could dethrone the Eagles. Obviously, Lamar Jackson is coming back. He's got a chip on his shoulder because he definitely should have been the MVP of the NFL last year. I don't know how anybody voted for Josh Allen. Josh Allen had a great year. Obviously, Lamar was better. And you still got Derrick Henry to go along with that stud defense. They had a good draft. Mike Green, Malachi Starks. I think the Ravens have an opportunity to dethrone the Chiefs. But when it comes down to those big games, for me, it's hard to go against Big Red, Andy Reid, and Patrick Mahomes. They've just done it year in and year out. Obviously, we're not talking about the Super Bowl last year, but it's hard to go against them to get back to the Super Bowl, regardless of who they're going against in the AFC.
Right. Until someone does it, it's so hard to predict otherwise. But I agree with you there with the Ravens. I don't think they get enough respect with adding Derrick Henry and having Lamar Jackson, and that rushing attack on offense is going to be scary, I think, this season. And it's time now for the hurry up. 3 rapid fire questions. No pressure here, Clay. Just 25 seconds on the clock for each. And I know you get asked this question probably every single day. What are your expectations? Year 2, Caleb Williams, what's going to happen in Chicago?
I've been at every OTA and minicamp. Obviously, I cover the Bears for the Chicago Sports Network. I think improvement is the word. You bring in Ben Johnson, you bring in Joe Thuney, Drew Dalman, Jonah Jackson to put on that Bears offensive line that struggled, gave up 58 sacks last year. Then you got 2 of your top 39 picks in the draft that you pick for weapons, a tight end receiver. So I think improvement. I'm not saying they make the playoffs. I think 9 wins.
All right, that is definitely improvement. But when they drafted Caleb Williams, this was definitely the goal. Can the Bears contend for that NFC North title this season, you think?
I think they're a year away. I know there's a little bit of there's some stuff going in the NFC North. Obviously, the Green Bay Packers coming back. You got the Lions, who lost both offensive coordinators, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, plus 8 assistants. Frank Ragnow retired. And then you got the Vikings. Their roster looks as good as anyone in the NFL, including the Eagles, but their question is, who's their quarterback? J.J. McCarthy hasn't played in an NFL game. I think they're close, but not in contention yet.
That is certainly a big question. Now we're going back to the glory days, the good old days. What's your favorite memory as a Philadelphia Eagle?
This one's easy. Miracle in the Meadowlands Part 2 when Deshaun Jackson returned the punt for the touchdown. I was on the field. I was on that punt return team. I blocked my guy. Deshaun took it back for the house. We won the division against the Giants. And then if I had to go number 2, it was that Monday Night Football game against the then Redskins, where the first play of the game I had to block Brian Orakpo. Michael Vick went deep for 80 yards to Deshaun Jackson, scored the very first play of the game.
Let's stick with another Dolphins player who I'm a little bit surprised at emerging here. That's Jonnu Smith. Now, he did skip minicamp, or I should say skipped minicamp, amid his desire for a new contract and kind of a weird trade report out of Miami. And that has got me kind of confused, frankly. The trade chatter, the contract request, it's a little weird to me. Like, Jonnu, you signed that deal last offseason. I get you had a big year. Now you're holding out. That's kind of it's unusual, even if it was just a 2-year deal. So my question is this. Who actually leaked the heavy Steelers interest? Twice, by the way. Does it make sense for Pittsburgh to be the leaker there? Because why make it clear you're trying to trade for somebody? Was it the Dolphins trying to drive a trade market? Or was it Jonnu Smith's agent trying to generate more of a contract market for his player? And what does that contract look like? Is he going to be asking for $13, $14+ million per year? Smith did play very well last year with the Miami Dolphins. 884 yards, 8 touchdowns. He was a key part of the offense. A better season than we've ever seen out of the guys currently in the tight end room for the Dallas Cowboys. I think it'd be an upgrade. Even though I'm hoping Ferguson bounces back, feels like he'd be a significant upgrade there. I don't know what your long-term plan would be for Jake Ferguson if you were to acquire Jonnu Smith, but maybe you'd get weird with it. And maybe you trade Luke Schoonmaker as part of the deal. Younger, more cost-controlled, probably makes more sense for the Dolphins, even though he's not as good as Jake Ferguson right now. Gives you a conditional draft pick as well. I don't think the Cowboys would really pursue it.